Oh, hey there. I didn't see you there. Sorry. I was just watching an interesting episode of the Corbett Report from a few months ago, I believe, perhaps last year. And this particular episode was entitled "The Dark History of Minimum Wage." I'll leave a link in the description. But basically, there was a lot of good points in it, and I really do encourage you to watch it. You can watch it on YouTube or CorbettReport.com. But basically, the point that stuck out to me that I want to share with you today, you guys, and I encourage you to tell other people, is basically how the minimum wage discouraged large families. Now, I know it sounds very right-wing on its surface, doesn't it? Now, it's explained in greater detail in the video. I'm not going to go into detail to explain why the minimum wage is this and that. I still do believe in a minimum wage. I've got some better ideas concerning that. But basically, the minimum wage was started by eugenicists who wanted basically people to be discouraged to have huge families. You know, back in your grandfather's day, my grandfather, for example, he had 8 children. I think it was 8 or 9 children. Mostly girls, 1 boy. And, you know, he also had a big piece of land. And now if you're as old as me, or maybe older, maybe younger, you probably have a similar situation where your grandfather or maybe your great-grandfather had a huge family, he had a nice piece of land, and you think about what's happened is, I'm doubting, you know, maybe his children have 2 or 3 kids. Certainly not 5, not half of what he had. Now, why is this important, you might ask? Well, what I'm trying to say here is, if you're one of these kings of the world or kings of industry or the Illuminati, what would you rather have? A bunch of people who have huge families, who are obviously loyal to their families, who have other families with nice pieces of land in close proximity, and all these families are able to probably find a mate with each other. So it's very tight-knit communities, you see. And what I'm trying to say is, they've propagated this myth that the world is overpopulated. Now, India is overpopulated from what I can understand, or at least certain parts of it are. But even again, then, there's a lot of economic value generated in India, and I don't think the people are really receiving the non-poopy end of the stick, let's say. We're going to try and keep this video somewhat clean. Now, basically what I'm trying to say about this, and I have a few points here, is they've discouraged large populations who owned nice pieces of land, who would probably be well taken care of and therefore be quite well off. Now, after World War I and II, what happened during World War I and II? People were drafted against their wills. They were, you know, given a piece of paper saying, if you don't sign up here, we're going to come and arrest you, and you got to go to war and you got to do some military service. But don't worry, we'll give you like $5 a day. So people were forced to basically kill each other. And not only that, a lot of them probably did want to sign up for patriotic reasons. You know, they wanted to go and fight the Nazis or fight the Red Menace or whatever the fuck. Oh, I just swore. Well, I could beep that out. Whatever's in their head. And yeah, it just seems like to me, I've always thought about World War I and II, and there is a documentary about that on CorbettReport.com or his YouTube channel. And basically, it seems to me they got everybody who was willing to fight, who was capable of fighting, who, you know, was willing to die to preserve their freedom or to fight for better standards in some cases, for the more fascistic countries, most of them. It seems to me like they culled the population. They got all the families that were big to go to war. World War I. Oh, we didn't kill enough people. Let's do another one. And huge fortunes were made off that. Obviously, the Rockefellers, among many, many others. I can't think of them all now. I smoke far too much. So it just seems to me that they got all the people who were willing to fight, like I said, to die off. So what do? They made the minimum wage, or, you know, if you control all the industry, you can make that a bad thing. They had World War I and II to get rid of all the people who were willing to fight. and to discourage any kind of fighting in the future, although it happens still every day under different justifications, probably usually under terrorism, stuff like that, or left-wing extremism. And it's like people have to beg for higher minimum wage instead of working for themselves because of all the, there's a huge tax. It's like at 30%, probably even higher with land taxes. And that's not even including what you pay to your rent if you don't own land, your car, your insurance, your payments, your gas, all this stuff. All can be influenced by the government. Okay, and it definitely is. And, instead of working for themselves, people don't have their independence. Back in the day, people used to own decent signs of land. And now people own land, yeah, but they don't usually have much acreage. If somebody has 25 acres, that's a lot. Back in the day, 25 acres was average for a big family. And it's like today, 25 acres is a lot. We're talking like maybe even a couple of million, especially here in Ottawa. Maybe if you leave, it's a lot cheaper. But so yeah, and the fact that no one has a good amount of acreage, back in my grandfather's day, or back at maybe even longer, you have a bunch of family members, you have a big piece of land, you can work the land to generate value. Oh, fancy that. You can grow plants. Forget about weed, forget about cocaine, forget about any of that crazy stuff. Imagine growing corn or soybeans, and it happens every day. People who own farms at the end of the season make a couple $100,000 depending on their acreage. They don't want people to have that kind of power. And in fact, they push everybody into these cities. Many different ways that they've done that. The Great Depression is a great example. We've seen what happened in the housing crisis of 2008, the financial crisis with Obama, good old Barry. And, it's pretty easy to see. They took the houses then. Imagine what happened in the Great Depression. So, they took all kinds of land. So, basically what I'm saying now here is, to wrap it up, people nowadays, basically we've got a slave away for corporations. Maybe some of the people probably have, a good job. Still working for a corporation, though, most likely. Most people work for some kind of company or corporation. And they're probably not getting paid too much. They're probably maybe making $25. And you think about it, I think there's something a lot better than the minimum wage. I think that companies like Walmart, like McDonald's, these big conglomerates of multi-billion dollar, not million, billion dollar companies, far too long have been wringing out their employees. I think if you're doing a franchise, I'm not talking about someone who has 5 or 10 employees. They have a real independent pizza place, Johnny's Pizza, who is not incorporated, who is responsible for what happens at that business, then they shouldn't have to apply this law. But if you're incorporated and you have a lot of employees that you're basically going to be otherwise taken advantage of, forget the minimum wage. Why not force these Walton families and such to have to pay in regards to the value these employees generate? So let's say 10 grand a day. Walmart makes 10 grand a day. That's low end, trust me. They make 10 grand a day, pure profit, because it's Walmart. They pay like a penny for their products. Now, let's say the rent is 25 grand. People always say, oh, but the rent is so high, they got to pay expenses. What about the electricity bill? If the rent is only 25 grand and they make a month and they make 10 grand a day, then let's say somebody comes in and says, listen, you got to be giving them at least half of that, or I would say even higher, 60, 70%. If they don't like that, they can go to China. They can go somewhere where slave labor is okay, because I'm not okay with it, and I'm sure people are sick of it. People have been trying to fight for a minimum wage for 30, 40 years, and every time it goes up, the price of goods goes up. The price of rent goes up every damn year. So it's a rat race, you see. So anyway, to wrap it up, I think it's pretty clear. I think I've made it pretty clear what I'm trying to say. There's a lot more better things than the minimum wage, and it's pretty scary to look back and see what they've socially engineered over the last 100 years, and to imagine now seeing what they've done with the lockdown and everything, where they might be going over the next 50 years, 100 years, even 10 years. It's very scary to think. So anyways, with that, I'm Al Whitten. Work for yourself and don't be a slave. We don't have to choose to be helpless. You got bills to pay. We all got bills to pay. But you've also got a brain, and your brain's worth a lot of money. If you can think of how to make money, you'll be a lot better off. You go start a job. It'll take you the same amount of effort. Do some landscaping. You'll be paid $25 an hour versus working for the minimum wage. Thanks. Again, Al Whitten, the Skeptical Canuck. This is 100% Canadian maple syrup.